Black voters appear to be sending a message to black candidates, and an investigation has revealed the state of Indiana may have manipulated a report on the death of an Amazon worker.
It's an unbelievable story, and Team Rising is here to discuss it. Niambi Carter is an assistant professor of political science at Howard University and the author of American While Black. Henry Rogers is a Capitol Hill reporter for the Daily Caller. All right, so this article in New York Times, Sagar actually did a whole piece on this because it was so interesting, but it had, New York Times reporter goes down to South Carolina, goes down to Atlanta, trying to figure out why black candidates like Kamala and Cory aren't catching on, and white candidates like Biden and Bernie are actually the two leaders with African American voters. And Niambi, what the voters told them was very simple, which is basically like, because I agree with their ideology, so that's why.
One of them even said, Niambi, he said, well, if Kamala or Cory sounded like Bernie, I would vote for them.
I don't surprise black people have interests.
Yes,
right. I think that's something that some reason people have not noticed before. I mean, black voters will vote for black candidates. Most of the time they have no choice, but more often than not, if they're voting for president, that's who they're going to have to vote for, right? So black voters do have interests like any other community, and I think Kamala and Cory were interesting. I don't think that people don't support them, but in terms of thinking about who is most speaking to my needs about the issues that I care about, and black people care a lot about environmental justice, criminal justice reform. They care a lot about racism, hate crime. Yes, healthcare, tuition reform, right? These are things that these folks are talking about, and it's become their bread and butter issues, and these are some of the things that these same black voters are telling you. We've never been a community. We've always been communities of voters with varying interests, and these people are speaking to my interests.
Such a good point.
In fairness, I don't think it's Kamala and Cory's fault, right? I just think people covered it as if they were going to already have the black vote.
They're just getting out. That's exactly what it is. And I hate, watching these Wall Street donors pick somebody like Deval Patrick and being like, oh, well, this guy represents our Wall Street interests, and now, these black people in South Carolina will support. It's actually quite, it's a paternalistic way of saying that just because somebody shares the color of your skin, that they're going to support you, Henry. I mean, it's very offensive.
100%. Yeah, like I don't even understand why New York Times would assume that just because the person's black, they're going to vote for a black person, etc.
We think about the lens.
I agree with everything she said. Listen. Biden is obviously ahead of the game right now. Okay, he's winning the black vote. That's like locked in right now. But the fact of the matter is, these black voters really do want to see other candidates such as Kamala and Booker come out and have some fire, have some energy, and speak to them about issues they care about, like healthcare, like all these other things. And the problem is the other problem is the black community, through this New York Times article, they said, we just want a candidate who's going to defeat Trump. We want someone who's going to defeat Trump, and we think Biden is that guy. And the Obama name recognition obviously helped him a lot too.
Absolutely. I mean, and look, what people don't understand is this is not just an exercise in your democracy. Like, black people's lives depend on this election, right? Like in very real, concrete ways. So there's a very high set of stakes here for black folks, and I think they're thinking about, like you said, all of these other kinds of things. And when we look at even black candidates before who've enjoyed black support. I mean, it didn't come for Obama right away. No. Right? It took a minute for him to catch on. Even Jesse Jackson, when he ran the first time around in 1984. But what he did do, was create the space for black people to take him seriously. And I think for some of these candidates, it doesn't necessarily have the same energy as a Jackson campaign or a Chisholm campaign or even an Obama campaign.
Niambi, what do you think of the generational divide among black voters between Biden and Sanders? Because it is stark. I mean, if you ask black voters under 50, especially under 35, overwhelming Sanders support. Older black voters have zero Sanders support. I mean, what is going on there?
Well, I mean, I think you find a generation of people, who kind of came up during this economic downturn, and I think the hope of the Obama years sort of evaporated very quickly for them, and they come of age in this period. And I think they're open to new things that perhaps their parents or grandparents were not, And it's not just about who can win, but who can make us think about possibility. And this group of young people are not tied to party in the way that previous previous generations have been.
That's
they are
true, too.
decidedly nonpartisan in terms of their orientation. So I think that creates a difference. They just have been socialized differently than, say, my parents or grandparents,
and
right?
you know what? That's exactly what younger voters across the country are telling us. It's not just unique to the black community. It's the entire the young population here. A more nonpartisan, issues-based. A lot of it has to do with reckoning with the legacy of Obama and seeing that. I mean, one of the quotes in this story was about a guy who's saying, look, I voted for Obama. I got a lot of social justice talk, and he supported Wall Street over Main Street. And he's like, I'm out here hurting, and deductibles $7,000, $7,000 a year, and I'm paying outrageous amounts in premiums. That's a universal message and a universal problem that people have. But I also want to talk about this. This is a little bit more of a in the weeds story, but it's really fascinating about corporate welfare, and it's
corporate power
and corporate welfare, which is the state of Indiana, and an Amazon worker was killed by a forklift in a warehouse in 2017.
Crushed by a forklift. He was underneath working on it.
Yeah.
And it just crushed.
And so the Indiana investigators found that the company was at fault. They were going to cite Amazon, major safety violation, fine it $28,000. But a new investigation finds that the governor was trying to get Amazon HQ2 to come to Indiana, so they deleted the fines that had been levied, and they accepted the company's argument that the worker himself was to blame, Henry.
The worker was literally smushed.
Yeah.
He was smushed. It said that in the article. He was smushed. And the fact that the governor of Indiana and his team was working to cover this up in some way so that the HQ2 stuff could happen, it's disgraceful. It really shows you how much power the government does have and how scary that power is. It can really change.
In league with corporations, right?
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's the thing,
with big corporations.
This whole story is really about, he was so concerned with throwing, think about this, Amazon sets up a system where people have to throw tax breaks at it so that it will pay nothing in order to inject money into their communities, which in reality means building a bunch of new houses for a bunch of people from San Francisco or wherever to come and move in and basically take over and change the entire town.
Yeah, I mean, I think this idea that Amazon needs anything in terms of help. I mean, I think what was even more bothersome was I think it was only $28,000 worth of fines levied for Amazon. And they're going to fight
they
this.
print that in 0.05 seconds.
Right.
Yeah.
They make that every second of the day. And you mean to tell me you can't pay $28,000 in fines? And because, like you said, you were so interested in wooing a company that didn't even locate itself in Indianapolis, right? They're in Northern Virginia now, right? You did all of that, and they still didn't give you anything back. And I think this is a metaphor for people who are thinking about this. It never works out well for localities that do this stuff for businesses. They will relocate, they will renege on already negotiated spaces, right? They will just close and leave, and then you're stuck with whatever you have done to create a space for them, because you're not just building new houses, you're building lanes right on the highway. You're creating space for them, literal space, for them to come take up residence, and it's costing your tax-paying residents money.
The only reason we know about this is because there was a whistleblower involved, which takes a lot of courage. The other piece I just want to put into this is, this is why unions matter.
Yes.
Because if they were a unionized workforce, there's no way that the government could have just gotten away with this without anyone noticing and manipulating. This is why workers have to have organized power in their workplace, because otherwise you don't stand a shot against these massive corporations.
No, and I mean, and it's about worker, right? We love the American worker in theory, until something happens on the job, and then it's their fault. And they were looking for drugs in this man's system, which I thought was particularly disgusting.
They were accusing him of taking drugs. All he had was caffeine and nicotine in his system. I mean, it's just completely abhorrent.
Yeah, I mean, what does it say when Amazon is more powerful than the state of Indiana? When it's nearing to be more powerful than the U.S. government?
It's about to be, I was going to say, it's going to be more powerful than the U.S. government. It's honestly scary.
Yeah,
it's honestly
it is. That's the times that we live in. Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thank you guys. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right, we'll have more for you just after this.